Today we're going to review Unit 7. So the first topic is variation. Oftentimes on the SOL they'll have you write a variation equation. So it should be a pretty easy problem. You just need to know how to do it. So if in the first example it says A varies directly with B and inversely with the square of C to write an equation. Whatever variable it mentions first, that's what you set it equal to. So it would be A equals, and then you always have to have a K. If it varies directly, that means it'll be multiplied. So it varies directly with B, so that means the K will be multiplied by B. And if it says inversely, that means the K is divided by whatever it's varying inversely with. So that means this is also divided by the square of C. So that would be the answer that it's looking for, is that equation, and so you just have to pick that answer choice. Alright, the first type of variation is direct variation. The general formula is y equals kx, but those variables may change depending what variables the problem uses. In the example, your weight on Mars varies directly with your weight on Earth. So when it comes to word problems, what you want to do is find the varies part first. So varies directly is right there. Then you need to make up a variable for what's mentioned before the varies part. So your weight on Mars, I'm going to use m for Mars. So that's what it equals to, because that's the first thing mentioned. It says varies directly, so it's k times. And then you make up a variable for the thing after the varies. So with your weight on Earth, I'm going to use E for Earth. A person weighs 125 pounds on Earth, so now I know to plug in 125 for E, and 47.25 pounds on Mars. So 47.25 for the M. So you want to solve for the K first. So I would divide over the 125. If I did that, I would get K to equal 0.378. So now after you figured out the K, you no longer need that first bit of info because it was just used to find K. So then it says if you weigh 155 pounds on Earth, how much will you weigh on Mars? So you want to go back to that original equation. It's asking for Mars, so it's asking for M. I know my K is 0.378. And then 155 on Earth, so E is 155. I plug that right in to my calculator and I get 58.59, which is the answer. The next type is joint variation. Joint variation is the same thing as direct, but it has another variable. Sometimes they'll even say direct, but they'll have multiple variables. So the general formula is y equals kxz, but the variables may change. So it says y varies jointly, so y equals, jointly is times, so k times, and it's jointly with x and z squared, so both of them are multiplied. Then it says when y is 80, x is 4, and z is 2. I have to remember to square that. So I'm going to solve for k first. So I'm going to divide over 4 times 2 squared, and 4 times 2 squared is 16, so I'm just going to divide over 16. So k equals 5. Then it says find y when x is 6 and z is 4. So again, I don't need this information anymore. I'm going to find y. So y equals, I'm going to plug in the k I just found. It says x is 6, z is 4. I have to square that second z as well. So notice I'm squaring it here and I'm squaring it here. That's the biggest mistake I see. When I plug that into my calculator, I get 480. Last one is inverse variation. This is the only one that's division, so y equals k divided by x. So it takes 4 people 10 hours to resurface a stretch of road. So this doesn't tell you what type of variation it is, so you have to figure out if it's direct or inverse. Obviously it's under the inverse variation, so it is inverse, but the reason it's inverse is because the more people you have working on resurfacing a stretch of the road, the less time it's going to take to resurface. So they're going in opposite directions, and that makes it inverse. If it was more people and more time, then that would be direct. So the first thing mentioned is people, so I'm going to use P for people equals, we know it's inverse, so it's going to be K divided by, and the second thing mentioned is time, so I'm going to use T for time. So I fill in 4 for the people, 10 for the time. To get k this time, I'm going to multiply by 10 on both sides, so k is going to be 40. So now I no longer need that first bit of information. Then it says how long will it take 8 people to do this Same job. So now I am asking for the time. So I'm going to plug in 8 for the people, the k I just found, and I'm solving for the time t. So to be able to solve this, what I suggest you do is put the 8 over 1 and then cross multiply. So that would get 40 equals 8t. And then I could divide over the 8 on both sides, and t is 5. The next topic is sequences and series. So there's 2 sets of formulas. These will be given to you on the SOL, so please don't waste your time memorizing them. So I've already written them in for you, so make sure you write them on your paper as well so that you have them in front of you when you're doing your worksheet. So for arithmetic, an arithmetic pattern is an adding pattern. So that means that you're adding the same thing to get to the next number. So an example of an arithmetic would be like 2, 4, 6, 8, because I'm adding 2 each time. A geometric formula, a geometric pattern is a multiplying pattern. And so that means that you're multiplying to get to the next number. So if I start at 2, it would be 2, 4, 8, 16, ... because I'm multiplying by 2 each time. So the first formula for both of these is to find terms. You use this formula if it asks you to find the 50th term or whatever term. It's right here. It has an at the beginning of both of them. And so on the SOL, on the formula sheet, it won't tell you what the formula is used for, but when you see the an, and if the problem is asking you to find a term, you'll use the an formula. So if you don't know what these terms mean, then I suggest you write them in. A1, that stands for the first term, so make yourself a note off to the side that that's what it means if you've forgotten. N is the number of term that it's asking for, so if it's asking for the 50th term, it'd be 50. And the difference is what you are adding each time. If you are not sure how to find the difference, which I do suggest you write this down, how you find it is you take the second term and you subtract away the first term. That's how you find the difference. So over here, the R is what's multiplying, and if you're not sure how to do that, you do the second term and you divide the first term. To find sum or series, so if the problem asks find the sum, find the series, you use the S formulas. So it's just a little longer, but all of the variables are the same. And then the last formula is the infinite sum. So if the problem says something about infinite, you'll use the one that has the infinity symbol. Alright, so now label what each symbol means in the formulas. We already did that. Find the following in the problems below. So given the sequence 10, 6, 2, -2, find the following. The first thing you need to do is figure out if it's an arithmetic or a geometric pattern. If you're not sure, then you can find the difference between the first 2 terms and then find the difference between the next 2 terms. And if it's the same, then it's arithmetic. In this case, it is the same. What I'm doing is I'm adding -4 each time, so that means it's arithmetic. So the number 1 is asking for A17, so that means I'm going to use the A formula. So A1 is 10. Plus, the number of term it's asking for is 17 minus 1, and the difference is -4. When you plug it into your calculator, you need to make sure you use negative instead of a -4. If you plug that right on into your calculator, you get -54. Next one's asking for S17, so that means I'm going to use the S formula. So N, which is 17 over 2, A1 is still 10, plus n again, so 17 minus 1, and then -4, not -4. I plug that in, and I get -374. Alright, last one is when you see that E called sigma. How you get that on your calculator is math, and then 0. So you press the math button, then you press 0, the E should pop up. You fill it in exactly how it's written. If they use any other variable besides x, just use x instead for everything. And then hit enter. So the answer is 140.